So, in this week's episode, we have had more questions from the wonderful Emily O'Connor that we went through. So, we spent some time. We spent a lot. I say we spent some time. We spent all the time talking about people and
People,
people
yeah.
related topics, didn't we? So,
Who the
we
people are,
we
what the
we
people do, how many people you should have.
this episode. It depends.
Yeah,
So,
on people.
it depends on people. The Vernon Richard Emily show. It depends on people. The end. Like that's it. So yeah, anything you want to add, Rich?
Yeah, no, we discussed, how long people staying in jobs,
Yep.
the ratios of devs to testers, who
Yep.
should become managers, who accidentally becomes managers,
Hmm.
and
And
which
why?
people should be involved in release decisions. So yeah, lots of important topics, and we hope you enjoy.
Let us know at the end, folks. Enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vernon Richard Show. I am Richard.
Yeah. And I am Vernon.
So, yeah, let's get straight into it, I guess. Like, we're going to carry on with some of these amazing questions that we've been sent in from Emily O'Connor. And yeah, we got some amazing feedback from the last episode. I've got something to tell Vernon that I didn't tell him because I completely forgot. But
Oh,
one of our shorts on YouTube got 2,000 views.
did it?
Yeah, it was the short where I was saying we got onto the topic of quitting your job, and that you shouldn't just quit. You should obviously try, but as soon as it start impacting your mental health and your joy in life, and you're rocking up, as in like keep it if it's if the sadness of the job is enough to but like the benefits from the job is compensates the sadness of doing it, then perhaps
Yeah.
keep it. But once it tips
Hmm.
too far, you've got to start looking or ask to be moved projects or something like that. And yeah, some reason like our shorts usually get a few hundred. This one rocketed to like it's probably got more now, but when I looked yesterday, it had rocketed to like 1,500. So I was well impressed.
We've gone viral. That's viral for us, and I'll take it. Awesome. Thank you so
um,
much for watching and sharing and interacting with the vids. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, 15. Yeah, did really well on the shorts for some reason.
Mate.
Anyway, right. So we're going to continue in the same vein because it's so much easier having these questions. So again, just repeat any questions, any topics you want to send our way. Please send them. We would love to
Yeah.
answer your questions and discuss those topics.
Yeah,
Saves us
man.
having to do some planning and prep. Question is, do you think people are staying in tech jobs longer since the pandemic? In the old times, the old time in roles used to be around 2 years, right? So yeah, what do we think?
In the before times, before the plague, people stayed in jobs for 2 years. Okay, so I think I think
We need to make that film now, right? That's
we
happening,
do.
right? That's got to be a
So
skit. At ATD this year, we're going to make that skit.
I
We'll do it.
hope you're okay with that, Jose. I think since the pandemic, doing the air quotes again that the listeners can't see. Since the pandemic is not a singular time period, I don't think. I think there's at least two. There might even be more. So kind of during and immediately after the pandemic was, the the what was it? People were just quitting left, right, and centre
Yeah.
and getting better jobs. And better doesn't just mean salary. Although salary was definitely one of the drivers, I think. But I think because we all had to go remote and people suddenly realised, so I don't need to live in this expensive city and I can take my salary and go somewhere else. Deal, I'm off.
I
So
don't need
I'm
to
out of
do
here.
that expensive, awful commute on that
Yeah, you mean so
packed out
I
train.
can, since we're not commuting
Yeah.
that cost $10 million a day with a bunch of other miserable so-and-sos who also don't want to be making this commute. So I can just go live in the countryside, let's say, and then so I think there was a lot of that. But
Yeah.
then, and I don't, I'm not, I'm not Gary Stevenson. I'm not an economist. I don't know what happened, but to me, it felt like all of a sudden, bang, the good times ended, and we entered layoff central. And for me, that's as far as I remember, started in 2022, and since 2022, it just seems to be just wave after wave of redundancies and layoffs, and people are finding it really difficult to find new work. So yeah, so
I,
to answer the question, it's like, do people stay in tech jobs longer since the pandemic? I think what I the way I would answer that question is to say, I think people intend to stay in it as long as possible, but not necessarily because they love the job that they're in. I think they're very much aware of the market. They're very, very aware of what the market is doing. We always are. When it's good, we look around and people are hitting us up trying to poach us. And when it's like this, people are still trying to get poached, but you're just a little bit more reluctant because you're like, well, if it doesn't work out, then I'm back in the market and it looks pretty tough for everybody. So I think people are staying. It's only 2025 right now. So I mean, I got laid off from a job after 3 years. I was made redundant towards the back end of last year. Luckily, must give thanks. I was able to get another job. And that's good. I like my job, and I like where I'm at. But I definitely know people who are in their job because the market is grim, and those people have been in those jobs for 2, 3, 4 years, because the timing just doesn't feel like a good time to quit and look for
yeah.
another job. You might look for another job, acquire a job, and then quit. But even then, you're a little bit like, if it doesn't work out, what happens? So, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think I do think salaries have dropped, and I think at the
They
moment
have.
I don't fully know the reason for salaries dropping. Like, could be demand, could be supply, could be the let's use the AI buzzword, right? It could be all sorts, right? There's lots of stuff happening on that space. But yeah,
Mm.
salaries definitely seem to have dipped. So I think if someone was fortunate to land a decent salary, they probably don't want to let go of that now. Especially as the rest of the economy is also, a bit of a mess at the moment, right? So I
It is,
think
yeah.
there's that side of it. Then the other side, I think, if I think back to my career, I was definitely one of the 2 year people. You'd get, I won't say bored, but like it almost would be bored, as in there'd be less challenges and it would be a bit, the same. And then I went every 2 years, I would move, and then consulting meant I was kept moving. Um, but I think now the other side I've consider is there's a lot of innovation happening now in most teams. Like the way, if you think of the innovation, I don't know, I'll get this wrong, right? But we kind of had client server web apps, right? They were the norm for a long time. Then mobile became all powering, and everyone was on the mobile front. And then we started getting like React style apps, right? But then it kind of stopped, right? That was it. Then you were just moving to newer technology and the cloud and stuff like this. But now suddenly with the buzzword again, the AI stuff and innovations there, I think there is a lot more creative work in these jobs, whereas I think in the past it plateaued. You were just building feature after feature after feature in the same tech stack, using the same tools, and that was kind of how it would go. And you get to a point where you're like, well, my automation framework's shiny. I can't improve testing any more than I have. And we're not planning anything super duper in the near future. So like this is my life for the next, foreseeable future. Like, do I want to work like this
Mm.
or do I want to do something more interesting? Whereas now I do feel like teams are constantly shifting tech as well as the product. So it's not as static as I feel it used to be. And I think that might be playing a part. Um, but could
How,
also
like,
be
how
could
how
be wrong.
how do you how do you think that's playing a part? The
Because
innovations.
it's
Are you saying that people are staying because they're doing cool stuff in the teams that
yeah,
they're in?
yeah, because I think there's
Right.
more change coming now, as in there's new
Okay.
tools to adopt. There's constant shift in the technologies we're using. If I think back to like building .NET apps a long time ago, right? There was only 2 .NET releases a year or whatever it was, right? So now there's probably one version a week. React has versions all the time. playwrights dropping features all the time. So a lot of the software we're using and the tools that we have available to us, they're constantly shifting now, moving at a rapid pace. And that brings about, more interesting things for us to do in our jobs. Whereas in the past, it was more repetitive. It was you built a framework, you were using it, and I mean framework from automation as well as the product, and you were just
Mm,
building features in the exact same way. Whereas
mhm.
now I feel that there's a lot more variation in the tech that we use. Our products are far more complex, so you get to go to different areas of it. So yeah, that's what I mean by the innovation side. It's just there's a lot more happening in most teams than there used to be. In my teams anyway.
I wish we could get some recruiter insight on this. If there are any recruiters in the audience listening, I'd love to get your insight in this, because to me it feels like we're like distilling, just as a population of people, we're distilling into people who are just getting laid off and people who are in a job, and I still lend myself to this whole people are staying because the market is grim. I take on board what you're saying though. I think that is definitely going to be a part, for sure, because I think you're right. I think the advances in technology, and we are primarily talking about Gen AI, but it's not just that.
Just
I
that
think people
tools
are
as
trying to
well.
figure out. Say that again.
Not just the AI side of things, but just the general
No,
tools that are available to us to
I
build
think,
these products
yeah,
these
that's what I was going to
days.
say.
Like,
I think it's enabling stuff. It's enabling things that weren't possible before. I think that is a real thing. But I am still surprised when I meet people who've been in tech in whichever capacity, and they've been at their company 5 years or even 4 years. I'm like, wow, 4 years. You know, um,
yeah,
that's a long time. You're like an old timer.
yeah.
I still find it quite surprising. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
That
I don't know.
conversation, I had the conversation at Slalom a few days ago. I was chatting to a few people, and I saw they do the whole celebrations on Slack. When you get past the year.
Yeah,
So
we do that. Yeah,
yeah,
we
there
do
was a
that.
couple of 10 years coming up and 7 years, and then I was
Yeah,
chatting
man.
to one of the people I'm working with now, and it actually was a conversation more from a point of view of. And I don't think he'll mind sharing because he probably won't listen to this anyway. But when you normally join a company, or at least I used to, right? You kind of do a little bit of recon on people. It's like, get on LinkedIn, who are they, where have they worked, stuff like this. And I never did it when I joined Starling, probably because I wasn't in the best place at the time, so I didn't do it. And then I was working with Carl the other day, and I was like, I don't know anything about you, Carl. And this was on a call with him. I jumped on LinkedIn. I was like, let's have a look at Carl. Scrolled down, and it turns out he did like an apprentice thing with Sopria, where Graham Freeman used to work, who's just retired. So congratulations to you, sir. No, you won't be listening to this
Yeah,
now. You're
you
hopefully
made it.
retired, but and then I was going through his time, his jobs, and it was like 2 years, 1 month, and then it was
Mhm.
2 years, 6 months, or something like that.
Oh wow,
And then the
he's
current
got an alarm.
slalom one was 2 years, 9 months, and I was like, oh, so you're getting ready to leave soon, mate? And he was like, no, no, no. I was like, no, it says here, mate. Looking at this, you're due to jump ship soon. He's
You're
like, no, no, I don't
you're
think so.
overdue.
So maybe I should ask him what's stopping him, because like clearly, the pattern has been like his pattern is there. I'm not saying that it was a pattern by choice, but there's a pattern there. Um,
Mm.
but yeah,
I've done
we
the
are
opposite.
seeing a
I've
lot
done
more.
so when I started testing, I stayed in my first tested job for like 3 years, and then after that, I used to change jobs like so often, and then so I stayed 3 years, and then it was like a year, a few months, and then I went contracting after I got made redundant. Um, I got made redundant. I went contracting. Um, that was what year was that? I think we're talking like 2009. And then like Rich, I was just contracting or freelancing, whatever you want to call it. And I was doing that for a long time. And then in 2017, I took a perm job and I was there for a year, and then left there, went back contracting for a while, for a year, yeah, for a year. Then I got a perm job. Well, kind of. It was like a fixed term contract, so it was kind of a
Mm.
hybrid of the two. Then I, did that for a year, and then I went back to contracting for a year, and then I've been in the perm. I've been in the perm world for maybe the past few years, but I've also been consulting and speaking and doing all this kind of stuff on the side as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
I
I
don't know.
think I think
Maybe an age factor in there as well.
oh,
Like
well,
you
I was
know,
going to
like
say I think another thing that is impacting this that I don't have necessarily good sight on is it depends where you're at in your career as well, I think. So I think at the where I'm at now and a lot of my peers, it's almost like I met them towards the start of my career, and everyone is kind of moving along in that general kind of direction. So I don't I don't know. It
who
feels like
knows?
it depends where you're at in your career.
Yeah.
Are you looking for stability, or are you looking to grow and learn and then hop around for the opportunities? I definitely towards the start of my career, I was in full on. I need to learn. If I can go and learn something cool over there, that's where I'm going to go. If there's a particular experience I can get over there, that's what I'm going to get, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to try and extract all the value, and then be like, right, what do I do now? Do that. Whereas
Well,
now I'm not really trying to do that as
yeah,
much right
yeah,
now. I've
yeah.
I'm trying to look for a little bit more stability. I just want to kind of bed
Stability.
down.
That's the word that I was. That was the word that was in my head. It's like stability.
Oh yeah,
But like, is
yeah.
that stability though because of what we're discussing about? You know, the economy, the world, the it is. It does out for me. External of my little bubble feels unstable at the moment. Like the wider thing
So
that I don't have too much knowledge about, but doesn't feel comfortable to me. So I'd like to make my own bubble as stable as possible to offset the
that's
wider world.
that's very similar to how I feel. It's probably identical. I feel like I've probably said this a bunch of times already on the pod, but I am not comfortable anymore in 2020. Like I've been becoming increasingly uncomfortable with this. I'd say like over the past 10 years. I'm becoming increasingly uncomfortable putting all of my um earnings and my income eggs in one 9 to 5 basket, to completely butcher the phrase. So I'm trying to I don't want to be just reliant on my 9 to 5. As good as it is, the fact of the matter is, if they decide they want to get rid of me, they will, irrespective of how long I've been there, irrespective of how well I get along with people, irrespective of how well I've done. If they decide that it's better for the company's survival and future prospects to get rid of me or anybody else, they'll do it. And that's fine. That's not me complaining. That's just the reality of the situation. And because of that, now I just feel like, okay, what can I do to mitigate that?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I've acquired all of this experience, and I'm what are the problems that only I can help people with, and what's the insight and the knowledge that only I can share with people, because I'm the only one who can say it in my voice, and I'm the only one who can see it in the way that I can see it. I've got to figure out what that is, and then who is it that I'm meant to serve? Because then there's that other saying that I love, which is, if you help as many people get what they want, you can have anything that you want. So I've got to figure out, well, who is the biggest set of people that I can help in the most impactful way, and then I can have anything that I want. And I don't mind having a 9 to 5 job, especially, you know, it's easy. It's easy to say, but this job, right? I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this week. This is the most excited I've been for a full-time job in a like a very long time, like a very long time. So I might only be here for another 5 minutes, and I'm not just saying that to be frivolous. Like there might, I'm still in my probation. I might not pass my probation, but while I'm here, while I'm at that company, I absolutely want to, extract all the value that I can from it
Yeah.
and help as many people as I can. But I don't want to do that to the debt. I don't want to get fooled. So I don't want to delude myself and think, well, even if I pass my probation, that's it. I've cracked it. It's like, nah, the economy's still doing what it's doing, and if they need to get rid of me, they will.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that, again, that like just I think one more point on this. I think that could be, as you said, another factor of this is that the the opportunity to switch as like we used to is not as strong as it was either. So therefore,
It's
the
not
energy
there.
usually invested in thinking about that, people are investing in being more like I don't want to use the word stable again, but like doing better at work in a way, so that
Yeah.
if there is headcount cuts or other stuff, that you're hopefully not on that line,
Yeah.
Like, and people are perhaps just investing time there. I don't know, but I think anyone who's listening, how are you feeling in your job? How long have you been there? Why are you staying?
Yeah.
Why are you not leaving? If you can share some of those reflections like we have, get in the comments. Let us know. I'd love to hear different people's opinions on this, and I'm sure Emily would as well.
Mm.
So, next question. I'll read
So
this one out because I want you to answer it
yeah.
first.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, you can
Oh,
do the
damn
next
you.
section.
Set
Right.
up. Set up.
So, um, basically, it seems that a lot of developers become accidental managers, but it doesn't appear as common for testers to become accidental managers. What are your thoughts on that?
I can see where you're coming from with this one, Emily, for sure. Definitely can see where you're coming from. Um, I think as development practices have changed and it's reshaped like team structures and team dynamics and makeups of teams, um, there invariably there seem to be more um, coders on a team than people in testing roles. And so the odds are that if anyone's going to get promoted into that management position, it's probably going to be an engineer. I've definitely seen that. And it's that classic thing of, oh, who's the best coder on the team? You. You can now be a manager of coders. Awesome. You'll be amazing because you're amazing at coding. And we all know that that is not a promotion necessarily, or it might be a promotion, but it's absolutely a new job. The skills that got you there are not going to get you there. And I don't think it's as common for testers because the landscape has changed. I think in the past it was more true. I think it was more true that there was much more of a well-defined career path for testers. But I don't think those, like I said, the test manager role, that's not really a thing anymore. It's not really a thing. The
And
the, the
even though you're
test
an
manager role
engineer,
has been
and
subsumed into an engine. I'm an engineering manager now.
yeah, I was going
Literally
to say the
these
same.
days,
Yeah,
I'm an engineering manager now. I'm not a test manager. I'm not a head of testing. They still knock about heads of testing. I know a few heads of testing, directors of quality, that kind of thing. So I don't think it is as common for testers these days. Now, what I have seen a lot of, particularly in over the last however many, like 5-10 years or whatever, is because of the perspective that testers have. I think we naturally have this holistic view of the world, and we can pull back and get a high level view, and we can zoom into the detail, and we can do that almost at will. Certainly the those among us who are really really good at it and well versed at it, and I think that lends itself to things like becoming the scrum master on a team or the product manager for a team. I've seen that happen a ton, and then from there people can go
sideways,
down.
sideways
Yeah,
instead of vertical.
yeah, and then from there I've seen people go down that kind of leadership track. And those of us who did have aspirations and intentions to be people managers rather than individual contributors, ICs, nowadays they would become engineering managers. The challenge that I've seen with that, though, and I'm pretty sure you know where I'm going with this, is that there is this notion that you have to have been an engineer, a writer of code, you live in the IDE all day, every day, before you can be an engineering manager. And the problem with that is that just continues up the food chain. So you're an engineering manager. Well, you could probably become a staff engineer, but an engineering manager, people are, have you coded? And then you go up again. What would be after engineering manager? I don't know. Head of engineering. Have you coded? No. Then that's not for you. Do director of engineering? Have you ever been an engineer? No. A director of engineering. I think at that point, it is really not. I
Yeah,
just
but
don't
I
see
can just
why it's
jump in when you're
important.
in trouble, right? If you're struggling to get your features out, I can just jump in, knock
Well,
out a few features for you. There'll be no
I was
disruption there, right? It'll all be good.
I was talking to a pal of mine who I will not name. Um, but he was saying that is what it looks like the market is doing right now, is that directors now, we talked about it before, the redundancies, the layoffs that are happening in
Yeah,
the market. Now the expectations of what these people are doing is changing. So it's less, to me, a director is a strategic role. You're not tactical. You're not hands on. You're managing the system. You're managing managers more than likely. You're
Yeah.
managing other people who are, who have direct reports. That's what I thought those roles are, but it seems like industry wide now. I know you're only half joking, but you're also half being serious, right? You're like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
directors are being asked to. You need to get back in the IDE, mate, because
Yeah.
we're we're light. we don't have enough. We don't have enough people to go around. So yeah, definitely it's a thing for developers. I don't think it's as big a thing for testers anymore, and we seem to face bigger hurdles. It's something that I'm going to spend a bit of time thinking about and talking about and investigating, because um, for the reasons that I alluded to before, I think essentially, I think a lot of the technical leaders in these organizations who are looking for the next batch of leaders who have testers in their midst, they're right in front of them, because the skill set of a tester lends itself to leadership for sure.
Yeah, I I definitely do agree. So like when I first thought about this question, and again, not to get hung up on the previous episode round around what's a tester and what's a QE, I think again, thinking of testers, historically looked down upon, right? Second class
Yeah.
citizens. So for them
Yeah.
to become managers, it would almost definitely not be accidental, right? It would have to be a pursued, or significantly more
Deliberate.
investment than a developer.
Yep.
Again, this is all, what's the word I want? Generalist, right? Generalizing here,
Yeah.
right? But like that's kind of the
Yeah.
experience that I've seen. However, when I look at some of the people at the moment, though, that have become quality engineering managers
Hmm.
from the testing community, they are the people that you described, though, which I would define more as a quality engineer, and have actively got more involved in the full development life
100%.
cycle. They're very much aware of the glue work that they've been doing and the technical leadership they've been doing, which has probably enabled them to sell it far more than people who aren't aware they're doing that work, because they view themselves just as a tester or a quality engineer, just
Yep.
a tester. So I've definitely seen a shift, and I think people who are quality engineers again, but people who are aware that their role involves leadership, they are coders because they're probably doing some sort of automation, or they are on teams where they're involved in the PRs and they're respected for their engineering coding abilities. I think
Mm.
those people hopefully will be treated the same. But again, I think I just hinted at another word there. It's that respect. And in a lot of companies, it ain't there. And if you're going to be managing, if you think of a lot of managers now or engineering managers, most of the people are engineers that you're managing, developers. And if that respect ain't there, or someone above you thinks you're not going to be able to earn it, they ain't going to take a risk and hire you, right? Which I think is wrong, but that's what happens. So,
I get it, because part of the leadership and the management of humans is you need to be able to empathize with people. Um, Sometimes quite often it would be good if you could actually not just coach people. So I believe I can coach anybody to do anything, but that's because of my definition of what coaching is.
yeah,
If you need someone who's able to say, "Hey, engineer, come and pair with me, and I will show you how to do the thing," then obviously you need expertise in that thing. If that is how the role is defined, then you need it. Same with testing leadership. Like if you're going to be leading testers, then ideally it would be good if you had some experience in testing. Now, what's interesting is engineering managers are not challenged in the same way when it comes to taking on the leadership of testers. So in other words, they're rarely told, "Oh, you can't manage that tester because you've never been a tester before." No one ever says that. No one ever says that. Oh yeah, I'll manage these testers. It's fine. Well, they just get given some testers to manage.
yeah.
So it's quite interesting, because that perception thing is real, and there is a perception issue. Maybe it's
Testing
marketing and
testing's
promotion.
easy, developing's hard.
Yeah, anyone
Yeah,
can do testing and anyone can manage testers,
yeah,
but only engineers can do engineering, and only engineers can lead engineers,
yeah.
which
But
clearly isn't true. As I've
yeah,
complained about, pointed out on previous episodes, no one says to the CEO of a company, you must be able to code. And yet the CEO has a direct report called CTO. Like, what is going on here? What are we doing?
yeah,
You know, we know that's not necessary, and yet we perpetuate this myth. I think a better question would be to ask, and this is a massive, we're just all the way down this tangent from Emily's question. Sorry, Emily. But like a better question to ask would be, what do you, in an ideal world, what do you need to know or be good at or have experience in to manage this particular flavor of human? Like if you have this collection of humans around you, what would it be useful for you to know about? What topics would it be useful for you to know about? What skills would it be useful for you to have? But instead, we shortcut to, well, if you're an engineer, then obviously the most important part in the management position of engineers is that you've been an engineer.
yeah. I was just trying to think then, and I lost my own train of thought. But it was like, is it almost like sometimes as well, like I don't know, again, QE, a proper true quality engineer, you're almost involved. There's a lot of stuff for you to digest, right? And I think it's one of the best roles because you get to touch all areas of what's going on. Whereas a developer, perhaps in a lot of companies, a developer doesn't. They are quite pigeonholed, even though they're respected more.
Hmm.
They are still quite like more pigeonholed, and maybe that's a way out of it for them. Whereas a lot of QEs don't feel that need to go up because we get to do this horizontal left and right shifting, and we are quite involved and probably already doing management. Just don't get called it that, right? We get called it leadership or we call it the glue work, right? They're probably already
I
doing
don't.
some of this bit that they don't actively seek it. So it
Hmm.
accidentally, whereas, yeah, accidentally has thrown me off, but I feel like sometimes developers might seek it a bit more, which means they see those opportunities land on their desk more, whereas maybe
It's
quality engineers aren't seeking it as much.
the paths are clearer in 2025.
Yeah.
The the options available to you are extremely clear if you come from an engineering background. Like I am in an IDE all day. The options available to you are much more obvious. If you are in the quality and the testing side of things, that career path is not as clear
Yeah. But
because there
guaranteed.
is a depth ceiling of, I would say, staff engineer. And then to go from a staff, if you stayed on the people side, and if you stayed on the people side, it's like, well, how do I become an engineering manager? That's a big deal. But then to go from engineering manager to director of engineering to VP of engineering to CTO, at every step, you have to convince people that you know what
Mm,
you're talking. And I
yeah.
know of people who have been explicitly told, who've been doing this management stuff and leadership stuff literally since I've known them, and that's over a decade. They get to a point where they're up this food chain and thinking about, oh, CTO is probably the next thing for me. And they're being told, because you haven't been an engineer, you can't be a CTO. And I'm going to have to make a deposit in the swear jar because that is complete shit, man. That is bullshit, Mr. Handman. You can't get that far and then be told, you haven't been an engineer, so you couldn't be a CTO. It's like, that is nonsense, man. It's nonsense. Anyway.
Well, feels like a nice segue into the next question, which I'll let you read around, how many of these roles exist and how many options are available based on perhaps a ratio of sorts.
So the next question from Emily is: do you think there is a good target ratio of dev/test professionals in greenfield projects, brownfield projects, etc.? And if not, what sort of thing do you think that depends on?
I don't have a swear jar, but I need a it depends jar. I don't know how to answer this question apart from say it depends. Um, like I'm on a project right now, and we're very close to 1-to-1, and you know things could be significantly better, and we have a lot of test debt, right? So right now, I would probably argue that we could probably have 1 to 2 in favors of testers for the catch up that we need to be doing, right? But that would be on a scale where we would probably hoping to get back to closer to, I don't know, maybe 4 to 1 in favor of developers. But right
Okay.
now, the practices have not been so great that we've ended up in this situation. Now, if I think back to, if I think if I think about this, how I would view my teams now, if I had full control, you know, I would think. Let's think. I'm thinking that in my head. I'm thinking that you've got a quality engineer slash coach, that kind of hybrid role, right? And the developers there care about doing quality work, want to write tests, want to write unit tests, want to have free amigos, want to do really good refinements, want you to review their code, happy to do bug bashes, happy to do all this stuff, right? If I've got those kind of people, I probably only need one of me, right? If it's a brand new project and there's timescales, then the devs are going to be building um the app, right? And then, well, who's building the automation framework to go with the app? Well,
Mm-hmm.
they should be, because they're going to want to write tests at the same time. So they can't be waiting for me to spin up a framework. So, like, that question argument we usually get, well, we need testers at the start to build a framework. It's like, no, you need a dev to write one test, and then they write another test, and then they write a third test, and at the fourth test they go, I should refactor that bit. Yeah, you damn should add that to the story points, rinse and repeat.
Uh,
But then that person's there helping them. So again, it really does massively depend. And to go back to talking about engineers, I think it does depend on that. Like, what kind of engineers are they? Are they the not cut code and throw it over the wall people? Because if they are, you're going to need more testers, QEs. If they want to do testing, enjoy testing, care about doing, you know, again, now when I say care about quality work, it depends how they define work, right? They might not define testing
correct.
and writing automated tests as part of their work, but they still feel they're doing high quality work. So that mentality, it reminds me. This question reminds me of testability. Like, I could probably, if we had a slide, knock up the 10 P's of testability from Ash Winter and Rob Meany and be like, go through all of that and say, what's your tech stack? How do you deploy? What's your processes like? How proactive are they for learning? What timescales have you got? All that matters. But yeah, I would say if I had choice now, like, I wouldn't want to go lower than, like, I think 4 to 1 is probably a decent approach if they're really good engineers who care about writing tests and care about that. And when I say lowest, I mean, like, I would happily have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 1 if they all have that mentality. If they don't,
Mm-hmm.
probably get closer to 8 to 2, something like that.
Mm.
But yeah, I feel like you don't want to get to the situation I'm in currently, where it's almost 1 to 1, because it's not healthy now. Like, it has been unhealthy, and it's still not healthy now. But then it's it, it's a lot. It's You get the mentality problems where it's like, well, I shouldn't be here to do this for you. I'm here because it's got messy, and yeah, but you are here now, though, Richard. Like, you are here, so, like, why don't you just do it? Yeah. Well, can you pretend I'm not here? Like, and like, they almost come dependent on you, right? And that's not what you're here for. We're in a situation where we're having to do the work on the ground. We can't coach our way out of it yet. We're not in a position to do that. There's too much work in debt to clear that we can't coach our way out of it yet. So we have to clear the decks and hopefully get in a position to coach our way out to a different ratio. But at the moment, we can't. We can't do that. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking. But I think that's it. It for me. I think the mindset of the engineer is probably the most critical part of this, and maybe the people around them too. But yeah, the mindset of what is an engineer versus what is a dev, what is a programmer, and do they all differ? A bit like we said around test QA. It's very similar.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. Maybe there's some studies out there that would prove me wrong, but I don't think there is a magical. You should always aim for this ratio. I don't think that's a thing. I think it does depend on your situation and the context, like you were saying. Um, what problem are you trying to solve currently with your team? Like, what situation are you in? What skills does that group of people need?
What does good
What
look
skills
like?
does that group of people have?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love what you said around or you implied anyway, that there are deadlines. And so sometimes it isn't appropriate. This is the thing. This is the thing that I constantly have to remind people. I am team coaching. Like, I'm here for the coaching. I'm here for the. Well, what would you do, Richard? Like that's. I love that. I love that place. But it's not always appropriate. Sometimes we need to do some stuff. And if you don't know how to do some stuff, that's, you need to find people who can do it in the moment. The risk is, as you said, is that can become a crutch.
Mm.
And there should be, you need to be quite intentional about, okay, we know why we're doing this and we know for how long we're going to do this. Like we know what the signal or the trigger is going to be to stop or to at least attempt to change, the behaviors and the work activities of the team. But
I
it's
think
it's
that,
very, very, very context dependent, I think.
yeah. And I think the thing, I'm listening to you there and like what I said myself, I think there's another like obvious one that we just kind of not explicitly said yet, which is what does good look like? What does quality look like? Because if that's defined and if that is get it out the door, don't care if it's remotely working, just we need to ship, then
Yeah.
you could argue that the quality mindset on that is not that important. If it's
I,
mission critical, high risk, high regulation, but we've got to move at 1,000 miles an hour to meet a deadline, you've got a different ratio.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, fair play
so
to it, call it, but I think you covered that aspect
yeah,
in
fair
what you
enough.
said before,
Oh, thank you.
because for me, like, you know, in a startup situation, the appropriate ratio is 0 testers.
Yeah, arguably, yeah,
Hey, can you even sell the thing? Like that's what everyone cares about right now. It's not necessarily that it's super efficient. It needs to solve the problem and it needs to
Well,
have the impact on the customer that you want it to have. Definitely. But you can demonstrate that without a testing specialist necessarily. That's
yeah,
possible. And you'll see that that's what startups do. Startups do not um focus on we need to have a tester in the team from day zero. What I've seen, and it would be interesting to hear what other folks think and what you think, Rich, but what I've seen of, quite a few times is there is a moment in the startup journey where people basically say words to the effect of, holy shit, does this work? Do we want to continue without a tester now? We should probably get a tester from somewhere. Anybody know any testers like that? Like it's a deal is signed with a particular customer and they're like, shit, we need to make sure this works. Or a particular scale like something happened, like, whoa, it broke. We should probably not let that happen again. Who do we every time I've
yeah,
got involved with a startup or a scale up, it's because of that.
yeah.
The
Or
situation gets real and the risk gets un you know uncomfortable, and they're like, we need to focus on testing right now because we haven't. We've been focused on product market fit. We've been focused on selling things, and we've succeeded because now we've got these 2, 3, however many massive customers, and we don't know if it's going to work. So
yeah,
we need to figure
yeah.
out. We need to figure that
Oh,
out ASAP.
or the person, again, startup mentality is you usually wear 10, 20 hats, right? And now that person can no
Usually,
longer,
always.
yeah, that person can no longer continue to wear all those hats, right? Because this scale happening all over the place. I see that a lot as well. It's like, I would, I can continue to do this work, but I don't have the capacity now. So I need to hire someone to do it. And then I've seen the same side that you see, which is that they've asked for, we've signed this contract. It has this SLA. I
Yeah.
can't manage all that. Um,
It's not just capacity though. It's expertise. Like that is
True.
just
Yeah.
business in general. It's
Yeah.
I've been doing all the accounts for the company. Now we've got 20 people. And now we've got entities in the States and Australia and Japan.
True.
I no longer know what the hell I'm doing. I need someone in here who's better at this thing than me. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And that applies to testing just as much as it applies to anything else. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great question. Should we do one more? I think
Which one do you prefer?
I've gone for 15. Highlighted. I unhighlighted 14.
Do you have opinions? Do you want me to ask you this question?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So next question from Emily is, My team release software to customers 1 to 2 times a week. Who do you think should be in that go no go conversation? I know what you're going to say.
There should be no conversation.
Um, That's the end of the podcast. Good day, everyone.
That's the end. Ship it, right? What is it? Continuous delivery, deployment, delivery,
Yeah,
cloud section, release
continuous,
management.
all the things. Yeah.
Um, right, in all seriousness, right? Should there be a conversation again? Not to say it depends, but if you are in a continuous delivery context, it shouldn't matter, right? You can say just click the button, but there still is usually a conversation around what's the disruption, what might happen. Do we need to communicate people and tell them features are changed? Is it going to go offline for a period of time? So there is still stuff happening. So again, I think it's that question of what is the people involved in it should be the people who are directly impacted by that release. Is it, a support suddenly going to get inundated with why's that button moved? Like, oh, we just moved it to the other page. Yeah, but why? Or are we going to get, like the site's got to go down and we need to go and tell comms that they need to tell the customers? Do we need to tell our customer success people that we need to let people know that we're shipping? Do we need to, I don't know, write some release notes for Apple? Like, I feel like it's that conversation. Like, I don't think that's the wording of this. I think it's more of, is it ready to go? Is the question here? That's how I think this is meant to be worded. Like, who should be in that call to say we've done what we said we would do? And again, in that call, it depends.
What do you think it depends on?
If I think put my quality hat on, right, you've got, the status of tickets, right? Where are they? Have they been quote tested, right? Is the regression in place? Let's say, has it been ran? Is the build green? Is the build in a healthy state? Is it shippable? And like those kind of questions. But then I would also think of things like sometimes, are we releasing something partly finished? Can we make sure no one can access it? Is there a migration that needs to be ran? Yeah, I've been involved in these conversations, and I've also been in companies where the people having this conversation know absolutely nothing about the project. Like, it's like a change management board, and they're just controlling change, and like they know nothing about your project apart from you want to release something. But yeah, I feel like I'm rambling, and it
I,
shouldn't be a difficult conversation. Is what when I say no conversation, it almost shouldn't be difficult. Like, your team should have agreed standards and definitions are done and metrics that you look at that basically should answer that question, because
yeah.
that stops the if buts and maybes and power plays and everything else that I've seen happen. You should just have these numbers and be able to say the numbers say go, the numbers say don't go. But
So I think in 2025. So when I started in the early 2000s, on working on software teams, the way that you described how you think what you think this question is, those go no go meetings were absolutely a thing, and they were a thing. There was a 1-to-1 ratio between the number of releases and the number of meetings. So if there was a release, you would
yeah,
have at
yeah.
least one of those meetings. Whereas I think in 2025, that meeting has been devolved to the team. So it still happens. It just happens before, like it happens on this
Mm,
infrequent kind of, okay, team, here is your where you live. You live in here. And if you're releasing anything in there, have at it. Like release whenever you like. I don't really care. So the conversation has happened. It's now been codified into a bunch of tests, a bunch of alerts, a bunch of other things. It's like, yeah, release the thing. If you tell me it's ready, then it's ready. Ship it. Like the tools will tell us that it's ready. We'll have
yeah,
the conversation. We will codify that into some tools, and then we'll release it. And then the tools will tell us whether it's ready.
yeah. Says the
And the
build
humans will do some
green.
stuff.
Have
Yeah,
we met all our definitions are done? Is there any outstanding
yeah,
bugs? Have we written the docs? Is the help guides done? All these
right.
things should be like almost like you say a checklist.
They need
And
to exist. They need to exist,
yeah,
and humans do need to be involved in creating those for sure. Who those humans are will depend on the risk, on what it is that you're building. I think. Yo, what's up, bro? I haven't seen you for a long time, and Ralph hates me, by the way. Tangent. Last time I saw Ralph, when I first met Ralph, he would let me pick him up and stroke him and play with him. Um, but over the last year or two, whenever I see him, he just spends the first hour in my presence growling at me, and I thought we were buds. I'm surprised he's not growling now. Dear
Ralphie,
me,
who's that? Who's that?
he's growling. He doesn't give a shit. I'm not there.
He's got his foot stuck in my hood. Get down there. Sorry, he's just scratching at me,
No,
and I'm like, get him
no, that's
out
all good.
the stop him from
There's all,
scratching.
he is more than welcome to make an appearance on the pod. Are you kidding me? Um,
Yeah, I know. So what you were saying about it, almost I agree now in that you kind of got your sprint right, and if you work in a sprint or however you're working, these
yeah,
conversations seem to be happening more ongoing. Like, hey Richard, oh not hey Richard, but hey, we're a day behind. What we're going to do about that? Or
yeah,
we've still our windows already pre-agreed, or
yeah.
there's a contract in place that needs to be met. But you're having these conversations on a more ongoing basis, maybe in stand-ups,
It's
maybe in
now
other meetings.
it's now
Um,
one to many. So you might have
yeah,
one conversation about where are the boundaries of your decision making as a team, and then the team will go and run with that. So it's one conversation, many releases.
yeah.
Whereas
But I think
before it was one release, many conversations. I think that's what it was.
yeah. But I think if you combine the two things that we've said here and like rereading the question, it's like you only need those people in place if the metrics ain't there. So if the metrics ain't there, which usually is the codified thoughts of somebody, right? The codified standards of a person's opinions, as in, no P1s, no P2s, 100% coverage, well, it's silly metric, right? But, it's just a good example that people have. The build's been stable, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's usually where, if you don't have those things in place, the conversation then is usually people explaining those things. So I would say if you
Hmm.
are in this situation now, it's like what are people bringing to the table, and why is it not codified in a dashboard or a metric? And start picking those things up and start codifying them to, number one, make the call go quicker, or to know that you don't need to bring in that person anymore because their opinion has been codified and they're not say never, but in the majority of cases you don't need to bring that person in because it's clear the state of their opinion or their thing that they would factor into that conversation.
Yeah, and so it might seem pretty obvious, but there there needs to be somebody there who's looking at it from the business point of view and or the customer point of view. There needs to be at least one person there who's um coming from a how are we going to build it point of view. There will be people there who are how are we going to um like run this thing, like where does it live once it is deployed, all these kind of things. And then there'll be people like us with a quality perspective,
Yep.
and all of those people feed into that decision making process that then gets captured and articulated and codified into something. I guess the thing to remember is that once something is codified, it immediately starts to decay. So at some point, you're
Yeah.
going to have to come back and revisit that and say, are all these things still true? Like, what's changed since the last time we had the conversation? But I think it's the same people that it's always been. It's
Yep.
going to be people who care about the business, people who care about the customer, people who care about how it's built and maintained, people who care how it's deployed and ran, people who care about how it's tested, people who care
People
about
ha-
how it's used.
people who have to do the deploy, who might have to get up at 2 a.m. or
Yeah,
I've been on those teams as well.
yeah,
Um,
me too. Yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Right. Well, if you've got any thoughts on these questions, number one, I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure Emily would love more insights and opinions on some of these topics and questions. So, wherever you see in this podcast linked. Get in the comments somewhere, especially on YouTube. But anywhere you feel like dropping a comment. And as we said, we'd love future topics, future questions. I find it so much easier just to start vibing off the back of. Can we use the word vibing anymore? Is vibe podcasting a thing? But
Oh
yeah,
my God.
I much prefer getting the questions and answering the questions than trying to think about how to frame it myself. So yeah, absolutely love to get a lot more of these questions in the queue if you do have some, and not share your thoughts and opinions as well.
Yeah, we also come up with topics as well. But we do love answering your questions. So if you've got any questions or feedback from us, send them in. I've already had some questions come my way, which are going to be featuring in future podcast episodes. So thank you very much for those, and keep them coming.
And we are 6 subscribers away from 300. Come on, get us to 300. Please, if you're listening and not subscribed, and I'm sure there's somewhere in here where I can look at the analytics and do a diary of a CEO. Did you know that 80% of our listeners are not subscribed? But I don't know where that is.
Did you know that
so
80% of our listeners are my dad? No, I'm just kidding. Did you know that listeners are not subscribed?
So yeah, I'm sure there's somewhere in here on one of these audience stats that will tell me, something about who's not subscribed and who's not, but I don't know where it is. And
maybe in the second half of 2025.
Oh, I found it. 64.1% of our listeners are not subscribed. So if a handful of you subscribed, we would get to 300. So yeah. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait for the comments, feedback, answers, more answers for Emily, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next episode, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye.